Hello and welcome to the Southwest Alliance webinar on self-advocacy using public policy to affect systems change. Presented by New Mexico Allies for Advocacy in partnership with Southwest Alliance.
So this is a presentation on self-advocacy and using public policy to affect systems change, as Juliana just welcomed you with. And we are presenting partnership with the Southwest Alliance Project, and New Mexico Allies for Advocacy is a group that was started by people with disabilities, self-advocates, for people with disabilities, self-advocates. And we're going to we're on slide 3. Your presenters today are myself. I'm Nat Dean. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico. The dog in the picture is my service dog, whose name is Tommy. And I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor from a motor vehicle accident almost 33 years ago when I was 28 years old. So now I've dated myself. Not like going out for ice cream, but getting old. With me today we have...
And my name's Lindsay Sloan, and I am the other picture. The dog in that picture is my now retired guide dog, Chantal. She retired 2 months ago. I am visually impaired. I am a self-advocate, and I also work at the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council in one of their projects, which is the Center for Self-Advocacy.
And I neglected to say that I'm an independent disability advocate and kind of wear a lot of different hats within the community. So on slide 4, the next slide, I'm going to introduce who our project team has been from New Mexico for the past, well, since I believe it was January, and then part of this team was together even before January. The team members are in the process of changing, but this is who worked on bringing together the information for this presentation. It's Lindsay Sloan, who you just met, and Adam Shand, who works with Parents Reaching Out and is a self-advocate also, myself, Daniel Ekman, who works at the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council and the Center for Self-Advocacy in Albuquerque, Mariella Tiem, who works at Parents Reaching Out and is an advocate, and Cynthia Berkheimer, who in the picture is in the red jacket. She works at the Center for Self-Advocacy as a self-advocate as well. Next slide, please.
All right. I'm going to run through our agenda really quickly. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it because we're just going to get to it. We have our introduction, which we are sort of doing. Our second point will be influencing policy as a way to affect change, which it is, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And then we have 3 examples of issues that we have used policy to change. And I know it's really vague, but again, we'll get into it in a little bit. And then we're going to talk about some challenges that remain after you've worked on policy, because passing laws does not automatically mean that all your problems go away. That would be super cool, but it doesn't work that way. And then we have a call, next slide, sorry. We have a call to action, which is basically what do you do now that you have all this information. And we'll have a question and answer time at the end of the presentation. So if anybody has questions, that's awesome. Maybe write them down, hang on to them until the end, and we can have some time to answer them instead of doing it throughout the presentation. And then our contact info will be at the end of the presentation, and there will be an evaluation at the end also that we need you all to fill out.
And that will be sent to you by SurveyMonkey in an email, and we'll give you a little tidbit about evaluations and why they're so important when we reach the end. So next slide, please. To introduce the subject, self-advocacy can create systemic change. And by systemic change, we mean change that lives on, change that goes into the system and continues to live on. And through self-advocacy, we can create change. And although it doesn't always feel that we can create really significant change, it can happen, and we've seen that work, and we're going to talk more about that. New Mexico self-advocates, which is quite a bit of the community of people with disabilities, are asked by New Mexico Allies for Advocacy and also other advocates with the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, which just did a 5-year plan. They're asked to identify lists of important and meaningful issues and priorities to them. And we have selected 3 examples today to talk about where we took some of those important issues and really went to task on them with working on public policy. Lindsay is going to take the next slide, slide 8.
So basically, the point of this slide, there's lots of verbiage on here that I'm not going to sit here and read, but the point is that, and Nat already kind of said it really succinctly, you can make change if you work in policy. I had no background. I hated policy. I didn't even know what policy was. Anything political I could not stand. I didn't see a point in it. But I have learned, and I hope that you all learn this too, is that if you learn how your legislature works in your state, learn how the process works, get teams together, you can really, really affect change in your state. It's really, really a neat experience for sure. You want to add anything to that?
The next bullet point of influence public policy is an effective tool for self-advocate teams in order to create change. Basically what we said is that we really learned how to work on influencing public policy, and by public policy, that's the rules that states follow, the rules that the federal government follows. An example of that might be the Americans with Disabilities Act as a public policy. So we take it really seriously, and what we're going to talk about today really is mostly within the state of New Mexico, but it is transferable to working at the federal level. It's a slightly different ball game, as you can imagine, but the skills can be very transferable. Next slide, please.
Yes. So this is a list of issues that the Allies for Advocacy, which I think you all did this before I became a part of it, but Allies polled advocates, self-advocates throughout the state to kind of find out what are issues that people with disabilities in New Mexico are facing right now that need work. So I'll just run through these really quick. Service animal law, which that's one of our examples that we're going to talk about in depth a little bit more in a little while. The ABLE Act, which is also we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail. Restraint and seclusion in schools, which that's ugly, not fun. Accessibility in general, I'm sure everybody on this call can relate to there being accessibility issues.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Thank you. Accessible parking violations. I know we have a lot of that on the University of New Mexico campus all the time. People don't care. They just pay their $200, $250 and move on and block the spaces for people that need them. ADA enforcement. I'm sure, again, everyone can relate to that. Needs to happen. Captioning and audio description on TV or anywhere else. I know Netflix is working on that. which is great. Environmental sensitivities, and examples of that might be chemical, people that are sensitive to fragrances, different chemicals, sound, light, stuff like that. Cyberbullying, again, and that one goes throughout, that goes beyond people with disabilities, that's just everywhere. Next slide, please. Cultural competency, and that's, again, big wording, but basically examples of that could be getting resources, disability-related resources in your native language or in formats that you can access, which is great. Disability history and awareness, and that's our third point, or one of our points also. We need more of that in schools and just in the community in general. And transition, I can read, sorry. Transition services, transition issues, there's tons of them. What am I missing? I think that is about it for our issues. And I know that sounds like a ton, but we're only going to work on 3 of them. Next slide, please.
And this is a living document, as the asterisk says. It's a document that's always changing. So whenever we are asked by a legislator or an organization that serves people with disabilities, what's important to you guys? What's important to your community? This is a list that we send out, and it's always changing. And whenever we send it out, we always put on that list, this is a living document that's always changing. And we make sure and we put contact information on that list of issues. So you can work in your own community of putting together a list of what issues are important to your community of people with disabilities. And keep it available, make it available, let people know that you work on this list. And eventually what happened for us is that the Legislative Counsel Service, which are the lawyers that work with the legislators to write policy, they come to us now and ask us between our legislative sessions, what do you think we should be looking at? And we send them this list, and then they say, oh, we need the top 5. So then we have to pick out the top 5. So on slide 11, we have, oh, I'm sorry, not slide 11, slide 12. Policy is a way to affect change. We've created long-term change by building relationships with public policymakers. That is legislators. It can also be directors of different organizations. It can be the police department. It can be city officials. It can be your city council. It can be a school district. Anyone who creates the rules that then in turn affect us, because a lot of the rules that get created are not inclusive. So today we're going to talk about 3 examples of how working together we actually did pass legislation, and legislation can be a law or a guideline or a focus on stating that a task force needs to occur and then a report needs to be made back to the legislature. We're going to talk about all 3 different ways that we have actually succeeded at doing this, and then some of the challenges that are still left after we have that success. So even with success, there are still some challenges, and we will outline that. So next slide to example 1.
All right, so example 1 is disability history and awareness in the education system. I know growing up in school, for me, we had Black History Month, we had different, and our screen just went blank. We had different weeks and months that were allocated to study about certain cultures or certain things, and disability history and disability in general is not there. No one knows about the disability rights movement. I didn't know about it. So myself, Adam, who's part of our team, Daniel, who's part of our team, Amira Rashid, who is part of our team, and some other advocates got together and decided that we needed to put together a curriculum to get out into the schools to teach kids about disability, and that it's not scary, and that people with disabilities are normal and are just like everybody else. Next slide, please.
The photograph that you were looking at is a photograph of a school assembly in Silver City, New Mexico, where a group of people with disabilities are presenting to a large group of elementary school students.
So, and I already stated the purpose of this, again, is to teach kids from an early age that people with disabilities are just like them. They're not scary. They can be your friend. How to treat people with disabilities with respect. How to be helpful when needed and not offer help when it's not needed. To do that, we created a curriculum that was geared towards kindergarten through 5th grade, and it had different modules of like kindness is cool and access for all, and they learn about universal design, which is basically making spaces accessible for everybody. It was quite a process to put it together. It was lots of fun. We piloted it in different schools around Albuquerque, and as Nat mentioned in the picture, around the state a little bit. I know Las Cruces, we sent curriculums down to you guys, which was great. We got it all set up to go with the Common Core, because Common Core was just coming into play when we were in the process of creating the curriculum, so that was fun. But it's such a great tool, and the kids, when we would pilot it and teach the kids, it was so much fun, and the kids really loved it, and they learned, and they taught their parents. It was so neat to watch parents pick their kids up from our program, and the parent would ask one of our advocates, you know, how do you live by yourself? How do you function? And the kid would say, Mom, don't ask that. You know, she's normal. She's fine. Don't worry about it. So we found that to be very effective. Next slide, please. So having curriculum is great, but if it's not in the schools, it doesn't matter. It's just a piece of paper. So we decided to introduce well, I'm going to explain really quick. There's numbers you can see on your slide, SJM 17, SM 48. Those are abbreviations for pieces of legislation. So we decided to get a memorial passed to basically ask school districts to include disability history in their curricula. Sorry. A memorial, and Nat, you can correct me on this if you need to. A memorial is basically a suggestion for, it was a suggestion for the school districts to please, you know, bring in disability history curriculum.
It's also, a memorial can be something that proclaims an awareness month. And in the case of SJM is Senate Joint Memorial 17, it created Disability History Awareness Month, which, for your information, is October of every year.
In New Mexico.
In New Mexico. And this is something that if you wanted to take on a project, there could be a Disability History Awareness Month created at the federal level, which would be a big job, but it's something to really shoot for. There are awareness days for just about everything, you know, Pet Awareness Day, Teacher Day, Secretary's Day that are national, and we think that it would be great to have Disability History Awareness Month be nationwide. So that's what this particular memorial did, was it created Disability History Awareness Month, and every October is that Awareness Month. But we need to do something more than just have it be a poster on the wall.
Yeah.
Because we're not a poster on the wall, are we?
No, we are not. And so I was on the Senate floor when we were when we got this SJM 17 passed, and there was an hour and 45 minutes of argument amongst all the legislators about why do we need this, why is this important, why does it matter. It was intense, really intense, and we didn't expect a memorial to have that much tension, controversy about it, because it's not asking for money. We're not asking the what is PED? The Public Education Department to, you know, fork out all this money to put in curricula. It's just a suggestion. So, yeah, there was all this controversy, but it did pass in 2013, which was great. So then, in 2015, we decided to do another memorial to basically just kind of keep the issue of disability history and awareness in the minds of the legislators. Hey, this is important, you know, keep thinking about it. And so that's when we passed Senate Memorial 48. And basically the point of that memorial was to recognize our group, which was the New Mexico Young Disability Leaders at the time. And again, the point of that was basically to just keep this issue in the forefront of legislators' minds. And what was so great about it is we went on the floor, the Senate floor, and it passed unanimously. No issues, no arguments, no nothing. It was amazing to see that in 2 years that much change had happened. And our last point, in 2017, we are hoping to work on getting a bill passed. And a bill is, a bill is enforceable by law. Generally there's money, or not generally, but there can be money attached to that. So the bill would be something to the effect of New Mexico legislature is mandating that school districts put forth this amount of money into curriculum and implementing it in schools. So that's what we hope to do. Thank you. Next slide.
One of the things about looking at these years, is if you see a pattern in the years of 2013, 2015, 2017, there's a commonality to those numbers. They're all odd-numbered years, because when you want to pass something that is outside of simply passing the budget for the state, you cannot bring forward legislation that's not what's called germane or non-controversial during an even-numbered year, because an even-numbered year has only the budget to pass for the state in mind. Anything else that's separate or different from passing a budget has to be approved by the governor, to be heard on the floor, and to be voted on. So during these odd-numbered years, that's when we really hit the deck running. And that's where we bring in things that could be considered controversial or could be off the subject of the budget. So that's why it's always an odd-numbered year. Example 2 is about service animal law, and the picture you see in front of you is Rika, a guide dog, and Sandy, another guide dog in the center, and Chantal, who you saw earlier on the far right, who is a white lab. And these are 3 guide dogs taking a break, but you can see they're looking intently at their owners as they're standing across them and taking a picture, because the service dog is glued to its handler. Next slide. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. No, you're good.
Yours.
Oh, okay. So we found, and I didn't know this till I moved to New Mexico, that the New Mexico law that protects service dogs, which I believe was the Assistance Animal Act originally, was not in alignment with the ADA. And by alignment, I mean it didn't match what the ADA says about service animals. The ADA says that a service animal is either a dog or a miniature horse that has been specifically trained to perform tasks and to mitigate a disability. A task could be guiding, it could be alerting, it could be retrieving, mobility assistance, anything like that. In New Mexico, anything under the Assistance Animal Act, anything could be a service animal. You could have a service ferret if you wanted. It was fine. You could have a service pig if you wanted. It was very, very confusing. So, and also we wanted to basically update the Assistance Animal Act to be to mirror what the ADA says. And another piece of updating this law was it needed to address the issue of fake or imposter service animals, which, believe me, there are a lot of them. People can buy vests offline off eBay and slap it on their pet dog and say, this is my service dog, because according to the ADA, a dog does not need to be wearing any identifying harness or vest to be considered a service dog. So needless to say, for those of us that have service dogs, that causes a whole lot of problems for us. Okay.
So the next point on this slide, in 2012, we tried to pass Senate Memorial 40, and we talked about memorials as being something that charges to a group to have a task force and make a report, or it's an awareness month, or it's a guideline, but it's not a law. It's not enforceable by law. It's not a budget appropriation. A budget appropriation is when money is earmarked for a certain cause or program. So we tried to pass Senate Memorial 40, which was to form a service animal task force to work on writing a new law, but we were unsuccessful in passing that memorial. And I have had to learn that when you don't pass something, you have not lost. Because if we believe that we have lost, we're just going to give up. What happens in the process of doing this, going through the entire legislative process, writing it, getting it introduced, taking it to committee hearings, putting it on the floor, getting a vote, each one of those individuals, their attention gets brought to the issue. And so they have to think about what this issue is and why it's been brought forward. So even though we may not always succeed at passing something, we have succeeded in educating. Next slide, please. In 2013, we wrote the law that the task force was going to work on, and instead of it being a large task force, it was done amongst a smaller number of people who volunteered their time and dedicated their time to this. So we wrote Senate Bill 320, and those numbers are assigned as the bills are filed by, or memorials are filed by the legislators for the legislative session. So we wrote and passed Senate Bill 320, changing, as Lindsay said, the Assistance Animal Act to the Service Animal Act, that now mirrors the ADA and included what's only in several other states, which is that it's a misdemeanor to represent your pet as a service animal when it's not. So that's either time in jail or a $1,000 fine or more if the judge decides the fine needs to be larger. There's also a clause in there that was started by a bill that a guide dog handler brought forward when her dog was attacked and ruined, and then had to get a lot of training to get back in the saddle again, and that doesn't always happen. They're not always able to go back to work. And that's called Stella's bill, and that we incorporated into Senate Bill 320 so that if your animal is attacked, you can receive restitution or replacement cost to replace the animal. So we now have that law, and it's we have problems with getting it followed and enforced. And Lindsay and I are both going to talk about this a little bit because we're about halfway through our presentation, so we're going to speed up a little bit. We have a lot of issues still, and we need to bring to each municipality that they incorporate this law into their own guidelines with animal control, with their own individual police department, with the sheriff's department, and that's creating a lot of, that's requiring a lot of teamwork to give examples and incorporate the language that's in the vocabulary that's in the bill into the actual ordinances that are in each municipality. And we have a lot of issues in the community. I want to talk just a tiny bit about that.
Right. And what that looks like day to day is if you are out, or if I'm out with my guide dog and somebody asks me, and I get on a bus and the bus driver asks me a question that they're not supposed to ask me, like, what do you have that dog for? It's up to me to educate and tell them, there's only 2 questions you can ask me legally. Is that a service dog, and what task does it perform? Basically, it's education every day, and that's how you make enforcement happen, or at least that's how we have made enforcement happen, or working on enforcement with this particular law.
Thank you. Next slide. Example 3, the ABLE Act. And ABLE is a federal law, and it stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience, ABLE. And ABLE Act allows savings accounts to be held by people with disabilities without affecting their benefits. Next slide, please. And that's Tommy in Washington, D.C., in front of the Capitol building. On the right and on the left is a picture of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., enshrouded in scaffolding because they've been doing a lot of renovations there. Slide 20. In this example, it was important because having too many assets in your name can limit receiving certain federal benefits, such as Social Security, SSI. That's the one that you receive if you have not worked and paid into it. SSDI is the one that you receive if you've worked and paid into the system. But if you receive SSI, if you receive food stamps, also called SNAP, if you receive Medicaid and certain other programs, if you have more than, say, $2,000 is the limit for SSI in your name as an asset, your savings account, your checking account, retirement plan, anything of that nature, you will lose some of your benefits. So the importance of the ABLE Act being passed, and it was passed as a federal law in 2014, was that people with disabilities can put up to $14,000 a year into a savings account and use that to pay for disability-related expenses. And that's a very broad term. It's for your well-being, it's for a personal care attendant, it's for technology like a computer, it can be for housing, it can be for quite a variety of different things, for repairs, for transportation, for getting a vehicle, all kinds of things. And each state has to pass a law within their state to allow these types of accounts to be held. So we need to stop forcing people into poverty who receive certain state, federal, and other benefits. Next slide, please. In 2015, in New Mexico, we tried to pass House Bill 448 and House Bill 467 to allow ABLE accounts. They're also called 529 type savings accounts. You may have heard of them as like a college savings account, where the money you put into that college savings account is not taxed. And parents can do that to help prepare for their kids. Your parents might do that to help you get started in college, but this type of account is doing that for disability-related expenses. So we tried to be able to set up these types of accounts in our state, because each state has to have their own banking regulations, even though it's a federal law, and they didn't get passed. Why were there 2? There were 2 because we thought it would give us a better chance of getting at least one passed. Neither one did. In 2016, which is an even-numbered year, which meant that this had to be a message from the governor, we tried again and we passed House Bill 61, allowing, and quote-unquote, allowing certain people with disabilities greater financial independence. And in 2017, in the community, outside of the legislature, we are working as a community to continue to educate people with disabilities about the ABLE Act as a tool for greater financial independence. So next we're going to talk on the next slide, 22, about the challenges. Lindsay.
So there are challenges even after legislation gets passed. So one of those challenges is having self-advocates be present and stick to all of the steps it takes to get legislation passed. It's a big deal. It takes a lot of time, and some barriers that I know I've found in being involved in the legislative process here in New Mexico. Transportation issues. We have one train that goes, or not one train, but we have a limited train schedule for public transportation to get from Albuquerque to Santa Fe. So that's an issue. Accessibility is also an issue of getting, again, to and from and into our Capitol building, which is kind of sad, but true. It's difficult to be at the Capitol for hearings and testimony at all hours of the day, and it can be all hours of the day when we're in session. It's craziness at times. Another issue can be access to interpreters for hearings and committee meetings, and also something I've struggled with is getting paperwork and any type of handout in an accessible format. Next slide, please.
So one of the challenges is just learning not to be fearful of the process or of the people that are the officials, public officials that are working in the process. So my famous quote is, legislators are people too. They put their pants on one leg at a time just like everybody else does. And this is a picture of myself and our Congressman Ben Ray Lujan, who this picture was taken in front of the state seal in his office in Washington, D.C. And yes, you can get into their offices and meet with them. A lot of times you'll meet with their staff, but the more you bring to the table, the more they may find that that's something that the actual congressperson would want to hear about. So it's this is going a little bit higher than the state legislator, but that makes our state government. This is at the federal level, but he's wearing a suit and he looks scary, but he's not that scary once you get to know him. And now sometimes his office calls me and says, we've learned about something. Can you tell us more information about this? You are the experts out there. They are relying on you.
And something that's great about the New Mexico legislature, it's a citizen legislature. So all our legislators are volunteer. They are regular people just like us. They are not scary, believe it or not, at all, which is really neat. I don't know. That may be different in whatever state you all are in, but that's how it works here, and it makes it less intimidating, or at least it does for me.
Next slide on the challenges. Just because you pass the law doesn't guarantee the work is over, but passage provides increased power to make something happen, and we've talked about that in a certain amount of detail. And creating public policy affects change and places power behind your continued efforts while endorsing all of your future activities. And that's a lot about building the trust. When you have passed laws and they know it's come from you, you have a lot more power as you approach your state officials to bring something up on the next issue, because it's never ending. I wish I could say it had an end, but the process can be enjoyable. Next slide. Slide 25.
Yep. Being aware, another kind of challenge, again, can be very intimidating. Being aware of the process and following through with all the steps. It can be an intimidating process, but you can break it down. And some ways to do that, become familiar with the legislative process in your state. And again, that sounds really complicated, but it's really not. Some ways to do that, it can be helpful to shadow someone. I ended up shadowing Nat, not on purpose, it just kind of worked out that way. Spent a day at the legislature, and she sat there and filled me in on what was going on and what everything meant. It was super, super helpful. And another thing that you can do is recruit more self-advocates and advocates by speaking at conferences and meetings. And we do this a lot. If you haven't, or at least what I've done, I have an issue that I care about, like service animal law, I and Nat and other people, we've been given the opportunity to speak at conferences about that issue and bring it to the attention of the disability community so that you can bring in more advocates to work on improving things around whichever issue you are interested in. Next slide.
So you can do it too in our call to action. You can seek out free training opportunities. Some examples of those that are in your community are Partners in Policymaking, which is a free program which teaches self-advocates and parents and sometimes some people who work in the field, mostly at a grassroots advocacy level, how to affect change in community, in your own backyard, at the state level, at the federal level, and it's a really great course, and it was, at the time I did it, once a month on a Friday and Saturday for 7 months. Now I believe that they do it for 3 days, 3 different times over the course of a year, and it doesn't cost anything. They put you up in a hotel. That's where you have your meetings. They feed you. You get a stipend for transportation. It's a great program, and it's national. So you would want to approach your Center for Development and Disability locally and look into Partners in Policymaking. It's a great start. The next, Lindsay also is a graduate of Partners in Policymaking. That was where I started becoming a partner in crime.
It's true.
And then the next step, which is a much more intensive, more academic program, is called LEND. And LEND stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. And this is partly funded by the government because they want to see more people become leaders in the area of disability, and a lot of the people who take the LEND training are getting their degrees in medicine. And if they get their degrees in pediatrics or pediatric oncology or pulmonology or social work or nutrition or physical therapy, occupational therapy, they want these people to know about disabilities because early intervention is the key to success. And LEND is part of universities that have centers for development and disability, or maybe called a Center for Disability. And the organization behind that is AUCD, the Association of Universities with Centers for Disability. And that is a free program. Your textbooks are provided. You get a transportation stipend. You get a stipend that can vary from $2,000 to $4,000. It's an academic year, and it's 1 full day per week for an academic year. And Lindsay is going to do it next fall.
Yes, I am.
And it's a challenge, but it's a very exciting and wonderful opportunity, and it teaches you a lot. And a small selection of the students in the program, usually about 30, 40 students in the program each year, are you write an essay, and then if you're chosen, they take you to Washington, D.C. and show you how to do advocacy at the federal level. So the call to action continues with public policy internships and shadowing. For instance, the ARC has a public policy office in Washington, D.C., and you can do an internship there. You can intern with a local legislator. If you don't want to intern for a length of time, you can do what's called shadowing. And we talked about shadowing in an informal way, where 2 advocates got together and helped each other learn, one that knew a little more, one that knew a little less. There's also shadowing where you formally shadow a legislator or a mayor or a city councilor or a county commissioner, and you can just ask. Sometimes it's a more formal program than others, but just ask and go for it. Seek out formal or informal mentors. Mentors are people who sort of guide you along in the process and help you learn how to do it for yourself, mostly by participating with them. Be prepared is very important in this process. Know your facts, keep your facts organized. I keep 3-ring binders. If I say a fact, I have to back it up with where I got that information from, and I keep it in a 3-ring binder, and that works for me. Next slide, a call to action continued.
So personal stories have a huge impact if you are going up to your Capitol as an advocate or as a community member. They want to hear from us, the people, the constituents. So knowing your story in regards to a particular issue is super, super important. Rehearse your story and keep a written copy with you at all times. You never know when you're going to need it. You can run into people, you can run into legislators anywhere. You can run into them in an elevator and you have 30 to 45 seconds to say, hey, this is important, can you think about it? Can you do something about that? So having your, again, this ties back into the point on the previous slide about having your facts and just having your information organized and having it with you or written down so you can, when you have time and when the opportunity presents itself, you can tell your story very quickly and very succinctly. Join with other self-advocates and form teams. There really is power in numbers. Example of that was when we were passing Senate Joint Memorial 17 about Disability History and Awareness Month. I can guarantee you the reason that that passed, or a big reason why that passed, is because there was 5 and a half, and I say half because my guide dog was there too, and another guide dog, so 6 people, advocates with disabilities, were sitting on the floor, and the legislators had to sit there and look at us. And, you know, we were basically a physical representation of here's people that this affects. And it really does make a big difference.
And when we say we're sitting on the floor, we're not sitting on the floor, we're sitting on the floor of the Senate. They call the area where the senators are and the Speaker of the House or the Lieutenant Governor is running the House or the Senate. When you're in the area where they do their official business, that's called being on the floor.
And you can't just be a community member and say, I want to sit on the floor today and watch how it goes. You have to be invited. And it's quite a process to make that happen.
You have to get a badge and everything.
Yeah, so it was quite an honor to be there, but it did make a difference. So showing up makes a difference.
And I would just want to say, when we talk about personal stories, and you never know when you're going to need it, when Senate Bill 320, the Service Animal Act, you would not, this is going to be unbelievable, but 2 of us advocates ran into a senator in the restroom. And we said, you know, we know you've been really supportive of service animal stuff, and we really want to get this law passed. And she said, oh, well, get back to me, I'll sponsor it. And that was Senator Nancy Rodriguez in the ladies' room.
Nice.
With Dee Martinez and myself.
That's all.
So that's kind of a trip that it can happen anywhere. You never know. Next slide, 29. We'd like to open it up now for questions and answers, and that you may have, or you'll be able to contact us at a later date. We're going to give you our contact information where you can email us, but we're going to open it up to the floor now. So if you'd like to ask a question.
Go for it.
Anybody have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Lindsay,
Yes.
will you make available the PowerPoint?
Yes, the PowerPoint will be available on the website for the Southwest Alliance Technical Assistance Center or Southwest Institute. Juliana, can you give the website address where the PowerPoint will be available?
Yes.
Where it's archived.
Yes, so it is the SWIfamilies.org.
SWI.
So that's SWI Families, FAMALIES.org.
Okay.
And that will include the audio.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I know what is this disability? What is action?
So John's question is, what if they don't, say that again?
The action. The action you can.
Oh, John says, what happens if they don't answer your question?
If you're going to ask someone to help you and they will not respond,
Yeah.
I think that the thing to do is, without being obnoxious, be a pest. You need to be like water torture. You keep dripping it on their forehead and trying to help them understand and be aware of it. Unfortunately, as is the case in many other things, if you think about it in a broader sense, if disability has not touched your life through a friend, a family member, a business acquaintance, a fellow student, if you've never observed it or lived it, it's not real to you. So we need to keep bringing awareness out there, and then with that awareness comes people then listening to you. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, I think you covered it actually.
Oh, okay. I find that if you have to be able to do it politely. Like, I'd like to share something with you because I think it would be a benefit to the community. The disability population, depending on where you are, is 18 to 25% of our community. That's no longer a minority. That is like an intro that you could use to get someone to maybe listen to you a little bit more. So that's like using a fact to boost the importance of what you have to say. And if you don't hear an answer, get in touch with someone again. And another way that you can start inroads is when somebody does pass something, when something is passed that you believe was done in a good way, thank them. Write them an email, send them a card, make a phone call. Because when you start to show someone appreciation, they start to listen to you because they feel like you're paying attention. How do you feel when you get a thank you card? Makes you want to do something again. It's a feel-good moment. Any other questions or comments on that, Lindsay?
I just want to add really quick, if you don't know, you know, like Matt and I know legislators because we've been doing this for a little while. If you don't have relationships already, a good place to start is figure out who your local representative is or your local senator, and you can take them out for coffee and just say you want to get to know them, and they can get to know you, and that can give you kind of an inroad to then bring up issues that are important to you. And since they will have met you, they'll be more likely to listen.
I think also another thing that I've seen people do is inviting a legislator over to their home. This is what I live. This is what I live every day. There's a woman who was in Partners in Policy Making, and she had a son who was on the autism spectrum, and she invited one of her assignments was invite a legislator out for coffee. She invited a legislator to come to her home, and her son ate from his plate and drank from his glass and was climbing all over him and just doing the things that a kid would do, but also a kid that has some other issues. And the person's name was Liz, and I don't know who the representative was.
Don't remember.
But she said, you know, this is my world, this is what I live, this is what we live as parents with children with autism, we need your support. And the legislator was not really listening very well. He said, well, you should really kind of control your kid. And she swore, I will someday take his seat. And the story, the moral of that story is 20 years later, Liz ran for office, and she became a representative in the House of New Mexico. And that shows you that you can start and be anybody and do this. And I've only been doing this kind of advocacy work for the last 6 or 7 years, because before that I was really not doing well with recovery from my brain injury. And I've received the gift of recovery, and I've taken that gift and decided to make lemonade out of my lemons. That if I want to complain about something, I better do something to change it, because I can't sit there and have a pity party. I have to say, well, what can I do to make this better? And it can be a long road, but it can also be very satisfying, because you're not just doing it for yourself. You realize how much wider that world is.
Well said. Does anyone have any other questions?
Well, we're going to go to the next slide with our contact information. You see on the left, oh, did you have a question?
No.
No,
Okay.
we're just trying to figure out how to go to the next slide. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. On slide 30, we have New Mexico Allies for Advocacy Incorporated, with a group of self-advocates that came together and formed an organization, and we filed for nonprofit status, and which is 501c3 status, which meant that we could apply for a lot of public monies or grants. And we got our nonprofit status within a year, which is basically unheard of. So we can't do politicking, we cannot do lobbying, but what we can do is education. And that's how we approach this. And the question that was asked earlier about what if they don't listen to you, this group helps us learn how to be more effective advocates and ask those questions and get responses. And our motto is, if there's a will, there's a way. And this is the Roadrunner with some chilies, and this is a big thing in New Mexico. And our contact information is on this slide. My email is natdean@hubwest.com. That's Nat, N-A-T, like Nat King Cole, Dean, like the dean of a school, D-E-A-N, at hub as in the hub of a wheel, west as in the direction.com. And you can email me if you have other questions. And if we really seems like it'd be better for us to have a conversation, I'll give you my phone number and we can have a conversation on the phone. Mm-hmm. And who knows, we'll meet at the Capitol or we'll meet in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill.
There you go. And then I've got 2 different emails on here. The top one, warriorqueen4@gmail.com, is my personal email, so you can get me on that at any time. And then the one below that, lindsay.sloan@state.nm.us is my work email. I don't have access to that on the weekends, so if you email me there, I will get it during the week. But feel free.
And an important thing to note that took me a while to learn is it's L-I-N-D-S-A-Y, not E-Y.
Yeah, I didn't get asked on how to spell my name.
And it's also Sloan, S-L-O-A-N, not S-L-O-N-E.
Yep. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to SWI for this opportunity to share with you all today. Quick note at the bottom, please be sure to fill out the SurveyMonkey evaluation that will be sent to you. The reason why this matters, evaluations basically are the lifeblood of these programs, and Evaluations is how funding happens. So if evaluations aren't filled out, then potentially funding goes away and webinars like this can't happen. The evaluation, I believe, is 6 questions long. It's super, super easy. It will take you 5 minutes or less. So please take time to do that once this webinar is over.
And you will not be identified when you fill out your evaluation. So if you want to say anything that you don't want to share who it came from, you're fine. It's anonymous. So the next slide, Juliana or George, is the next webinar date for this program.
Hi, people, and I just want to give a quick thanks to New Mexico. I think that was an incredible presentation, very informative. Looks like you guys have done a lot. You guys have done a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we do it year round.
That's amazing. You know, but that's good that you guys are really pushing forward the whole self-advocacy movement and disability movement, and we're very proud.
Thank you.
So we do have some future webinars coming up, and if you look on your screen, you'll see the dates for them. The next webinar will be June 27th, so that's coming up. That will be Arizona, and they will be presenting 5 steps to a successful meeting. All right, and that will be 1 p.m. Pacific or 2 p.m. Mountain. And then the next one will be July 13th, so get that on your calendar also. That'll be Colorado, and they'll be doing their presentation on transportation. Yes. And July 20th will be Utah on internet safety. And July 25th, Arizona is still coming up with the title. So that's to be determined or to be announced. August 3rd, New Mexico will present again, developing partnerships. And then finally, September 14th, we have Colorado on officer roles, which is very important for a successful self-advocacy group. So with that said,
If we can go to the next slide.
There you go. These are our partners who have made this successful. As you can see, we are the Southwest Alliance Technical Assistance Center as part of SWI. If you have any questions, you can email Juliana, j.Quirena at swifamilies.org, or you can give her a call at 602-235-0354, extension 802. Our partners include the ARG, Parents.
We'd like to thank the ARC for being the fiscal receiver for the funding for this program in New Mexico.
Yep, exactly. And so we also have this grant through AIDD and ACL. And so once again, thank you guys so much.
We'd also like to thank the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council for their support and the Center for Self-Advocacy for a great deal of support they've offered us, and also giving time away from their jobs for people who've been on our team. And the Center for Development and Disability, which is our AUCD university, the Association of Universities with Centers on Disability, and that's our particular University of New Mexico, or UNM Center for Development and Disability, also known as the CDD. I just wanted to say for anybody who's visually impaired that to email Juliana, it's j.huerena at SWIFamilies, FAMILIES.org.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We really appreciate your attention, your participation, and your interest.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
I
you.
hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Bye.
Thank you.
You.